Now that you know a bit about how the course works, let's talk about how grading in the course is going to work. As you know, you're taking this course on a pass-fail or satisfactory-unsatisfactory basis. And to pass the course, you have to earn at least 70 out of a total 100 possible course points. Now, the way you're going to earn those course points is by engaging in these activities, where the very first thing I'm going to ask you to do is just to come to class. I'm going to deliver some content outside of class, but it's in class that we're going to develop together the big themes and ideas of the course, where we're going to debate some issues, where we're going to have guest speakers. And so it's by coming to class that you're going to get the most out of this course. So just by coming to class, you'll be able to earn up to 15 course points. Now I recognize that sometimes something gets in the way of coming to class, and so everybody gets an automatic 2 unexcused absences that won't count against you. So if you come to every class except for 2 and you didn't get an excused absence for those 2 misses, you still get the 15 points. We also have a mechanism to request excused absences that don't count against you. There's a link on the Canvas homepage that you can use to request an excused absence when you know you can't be in class for a reasonable reason. Maybe you're sick, maybe you have a family emergency, maybe you need to travel to some athletic event. Submit some documentation and request an excused absence in those cases, and that won't count against you. Then we have these in-between class quizzes that cover material from the previous class meeting, as well as material from a module intended to prepare you for the next class meeting. These quizzes are really meant to be learning tools, not high-stakes tests, and for that reason, I'm going to let you take those quizzes as often as you'd like in between those class meetings until you get the score you want. It's by taking those quizzes repeatedly until you're comfortable with the material that you will get prepared for the next time that we meet. And so just by taking those quizzes and doing well at them, which everybody can do because you can take them repeatedly, you can earn up to 30 additional course points. Only your highest quiz score for each quiz is going to count. And we're going to drop your lowest 3 quizzes at the end of the semester. So those 30 points come from quizzes. Sometimes because you were sick or because you had a family emergency, you may need some additional time to complete a quiz. Again, on the Canvas homepage, there's a link to request an extension for a quiz, which we can grant if you have a reasonable excuse with documentation. But most of the time we expect you to complete those quizzes before the class starts because they're intended to prepare you for that class meeting. Then we have homeworks that are due in sections. And on our syllabus, we explain more about what those homework assignments are, but basically there are 2 things that we'll ask you to hand in every week to your discussion section. And your discussion leaders will grade those based on whether you've put in a reasonable amount of effort. So they won't be graded harshly, but put in some effort, hand those 2 things in every week, and you can earn up to 10 additional course points. Just by coming to discussion sections, you can get an additional 5 course points. Each discussion section is going to meet 11 times during the semester. And to get the 5 points, you have to come to at least 10 of those discussion sections or have an excused absence which you can request in the same way as you request excused absences for class with that link on the homepage of the Canvas site. But you have to request those excused absences ahead of time. Then we have a category called group participation. Within your discussion sections, you'll be part of a group and you'll work together on some material that the TAs will present to you. So each group will participate with one another and then come together in the larger section to talk about what they discussed during their group discussion sessions. Your group participation score will be determined at the end of the semester by a survey that we're going to administer where you're going to self-assess your own contribution to the group and each group member assesses your contribution as well. And we'll average those to come up with a group participation score that can add up to 5 additional points. And then there's a final group project at the very end of the course the same group that you've been working with in your sections all semester will produce a video, 3 to 5 minutes, to talk about something that made an impression on you, that maybe changed something about how you think about the world that you thought was particularly important. There is a great deal of latitude in terms of what you can do in that final group project. That final group project, which I will grade myself, will count up to 10 additional points. Now, if you add up all of these, you arrive at 75 total points. And notice again that there's no reason you can't get most of those points. We're just asking you to come to class and discussion section, hand in homeworks and put in reasonable effort. Take those quizzes until you get a reasonable score. Participate in your group and do that final group project. That can easily lead to more than 70 points. And if you get more than 70 points by doing those things, there's no reason to worry about a final exam. In fact, my goal is for nobody to have to take a final exam in this course. I'm not interested in giving a final exam. The only reason it's there is as a failsafe if you didn't accumulate enough points by doing what I'm asking you to do. So when you think about passing the course, the first way of passing the course is to come into the final exam. So pre-final exam points. If you have pre-final exam points that are greater than or equal to 70, then you've already passed the course. There is no reason to take the final exam. It's only if you haven't reached those 70 points that you have to take the final exam to pass the course. And that final exam can give you an additional 25 points. But the only way that final exam is going to give you points is if you make a score of at least 70% on that final exam. So you can't just be 3 or 4 points shy of passing the course and then get 20% on the final exam and get enough points to pass the course. The only way the final exam is going to count is if you pass the final exam itself. Now, if you pass the final exam with a 70, that'll give you 70% of those 25 points, which is 17.5 points. So if before the final exam you have anywhere between 52.5 and 70 points, then getting a 70 on the final exam will give you enough points to pass the course. It'll give you at least 17.5 points. 52.5 plus 17.5 gets you to 70. So you get at least a 70 on the final exam and you pass the course. If you have fewer than 52.5 points, you're going to have to get more than 70 on the final exam to get enough points to get you to the total 70 course points. So if you had 45 points, for example, before the final exam, you need 25 more points to pass the course to get to that 70. In other words, you need to get all the final exam points. You need to get a perfect score on the final exam. So if you have 45 to 52.5 points before the final exam, you need sufficient points from the final to get to 70 course points. So if you have only 45, you need a perfect score in the final exam. You need something less than a perfect score, but above 70 if you're in this range. If you're in this range, you just need to get the 70 in order for the final to count. Now, by far the easiest way to pass this course is to just get 70 points by doing everything that I'm asking you to do and not have to take the final exam. The final exam is not trivial, and historically people who haven't accumulated enough points to get themselves out of the final exam didn't get enough on the final exam to pass the course. Most people didn't. Some did, but most people didn't. So you don't really want to end up in that category. It's certainly still possible to pass the course, and every year people have done it, but by far the most common way of passing the course, the vast majority of you will hopefully be in a position to not have to take the final exam. Now that's a broad overview of how the grading in this course is going to work. For details about how exactly we arrive at these points, check out the syllabus. Everything is explained in much more detail there if you're curious. But really the bottom line is simply come to class, prepare yourself for class, hand in those homeworks, go to your discussion groups, participate in your groups, and hand in that final group project. And you shouldn't have to take a final exam.